is episode 93, Wine 101.
Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of SLP's Wine and Cheese. I'm Maria.
I'm Deb.
And here's our podcast.
For the realistic SLP who is actively anti-racism.
Our podcast wants to foster a community of diverse perspectives, backgrounds, and voices.
This episode, we are going to talk to two gentlemen who invented a device or an instrument called ULO, which is made to purify wine by removing sulfates and aerating the wine. Maria tried it out today before she started drinking her. What wine are you drinking?
I'm drinking this Eric Kent Rosé wine, a 2018 vintage, and you could see here, well, you can't really tell that I uloed, but I'll tell you that I did, because I did.
Mm-hmm.
And it's, in a way, it's making me pour a second glass quite so swiftly, because I'm like, well, I uloed it. There's no sulfates.
Right.
And, it's allowing me to just use an excuse to drink more. So in a way, it's a great invention.
Yeah. Did you aerate your wine? Did you put the air on or the air off?
I want to say I put it on because
okay.
It was dripping slowly.
I think that it was recommended for the lighter wines that the air is on.
Yes.
So
I learned something from
our new
episode.
Friends, Joe and James, you're going to hear from them later. They're two scientists and based out of Chicago, and they created this ULO. It purifies the wine. So most wine, all wine contains sulfates, and that's how you preserve it. But that's also what gives you the headaches and the hangover. And these artificial preservatives are purified out of the wine with this technology so that you can enjoy the wine today and tomorrow.
Absolutely.
I guess, right?
That is correct. So, Deb, you're not drinking wine right now, though, right?
No, I have coffee because I am doing the Whole 30, which is like a modified Whole 30, I will admit, because I think the Whole 30 is pretty expensive. So, and then also difficult in quarantine. But in any event, I am adhering to the no alcohol aspect because I was partying every night during quarantine. It was a quarantine party here in Brooklyn, and I needed to slow it down. So now I am, having some coffee, only because not that I would have coffee this late, but I was just feeling so sluggish today, and I just thought, you know what, I need some coffee. And
I love iced coffee. Iced coffee is amazing. It's
really, I'm having a hot.
Yeah, I'm all about the
coffee.
ice. I make iced cubes with my leftover coffee so that when I put the coffee ice cubes in my iced coffee, it melts and it's in coffee and it's not watered down. So it takes coffee very seriously here.
That's a good idea.
Yes.
That's great. You can also put that in a smoothie.
That is correct.
Yeah.
Coffee flavored smoothie with some protein powder or peanut butter if you want. I'm just going to get hungry now. That's what's going to happen.
Yeah, I'm pretty hungry. Mike just asked me if I want something from the store, and I just nodded. I don't know what I want, but I do know I want something.
Pickles. Just go with the pickles.
Yeah, pickles would be good. Speaking of Mike, he ordered this box of wine, and it came with this little tasting card, and I thought it just had, since this is our Wine 101 episode, we are talking about the science behind wine and just understanding it a bit better. So you can taste by sight. And what this means is that what you see in your glass can tell you a lot about the wine's age or variety, or if it was aged in oak. So here's how you can do it. You're going to hold your glass at an angle over a white surface to start.
Doing that now.
Okay. So red wines get lighter over time and white wines get darker over time. A darker color in a white wine might also indicate that the wine has been aged in oak. So that's an interesting tidbit. Maybe if you had two of the same wines from a different vintage, which vintage just means the year. We learned that in our episode. You'll hear that again later.
That is one of the top things that I have learned in this in the talk that we had with the two ULO guys. I
Yeah.
always felt a little silly where I was like, but what's the difference? How do you know when something's vintage? But I don't want to spoil
Right.
it's coming up, so just stay tuned. You get to hear Deb and I
Talk
talking
to
to
some
some
scientists.
scientists about wine, and they're thinking like, okay, these chicks have a wine podcast, and we're sitting there like, yeah, we like rosé. We drink rosé. Yes,
Yeah.
nod your head and smile. Yes, Deb. Yes, we
Yes.
do.
Yes, exactly. That's what we were doing. Like, yeah, they had fancy wine and I had bands of rosé.
Yeah.
So another fact I wanted to tell you about wine. Do you know wine has legs?
Yes. When you swirl it like this, I'm swirling right
So
now.
wine legs or tears are the droplets that form on
Mhm.
the sides of your wine
Yes,
glass.
I see it
Heavy
right
and
now.
slow droplets indicate higher alcohol or sugar. Faster and thin droplets indicate lower alcohol or sugar.
Yes, I'm assuming with like the fruitier wines that contains more sugar and sweeter,
Mm-hmm.
like a wine like rosé right now. That,
Uh-huh.
as I'm
Yeah.
swirling, it's kind
You
of
see
hard
any
to swirl
droplets?
right now. I'm having some swirling difficulties.
All right. Well, while you
Yeah, I'm
swirl, can you
swirling.
smell it? Smell
Can
it
I
because
smell? I'm gonna
the
smell it.
aroma accounts for about 85% of taste.
Smells
And
very much like
so,
alcohol.
okay,
Very
smelling a
alcoholic.
wine is one of the most important parts of tasting it. So
Yes.
swirl and sniff, swirl and sniff.
Mm-hmm. And this wine is I think I believe the same company of the wine that I drank on the interview. It's from Sonoma County, and they talk about that too on the interview. But this is
Ah,
very sweet. I think there's probably some fruits in here, a
so
lot
then
of berries, perhaps.
nice. Okay, yeah. So that indicates like the red.
Mm-hmm.
Here we have it says like so separating the fruit aromas in white and red wines. So a white wine might have like citrus, which would be, lemon or orange, and then orchard, which would be like an apple. Then we have stone, which looks like a peach, and tropical, which is a kiwi. And then red wines have red fruits. There's a strawberry, black fruits like a cherry, or blue fruits like a blueberry. And then you can identify non fruit aromas such as florals, herbs, spices, or earth. Then finally, Maria's favorite topic so far has been oak aging indicators. So that would be like vanilla, baking spices, and coconut. So, what did
Nice.
you learn about oak barrels, Maria?
Yes, from our chat with James and the ULO team, I discovered that oak barrels, right? So the person who makes an oak barrel is called a cooper. So just fun fact. And then oak beat out clay back in the Roman times when they used to store wine in clay. And then if you think about it, like in just like back in the day, if you see like art in the art museums, they're holding a lot of like clay vases, and I wonder if there was wine in there.
Oh,
And
maybe.
yeah. So, and then also I looked up some more interesting facts about oak. So this is not just, me off the dome right now. I'm going to leave this article in the show notes so people can learn more about oak. But did you know the barrels are shaped that way for a reason? Because they can be rolled down, but they could also stand upright to remain stationary.
Oh, nice.
So, yeah. And then, of course, this is what you were just saying about the different types of oak. So, North American oak is different from a Western European oak. And people, they argue about which oak is better and stuff like that, because of how that different wood changes the flavor profile.
Oh. So then the flavor profile, so we can taste by our palate, right? And flavor is
Correct.
what you smell and also what you taste. So you got to sip and swish to confirm what you smell and see what new flavors stand out.
I'm
So
gonna
the
keep doing that
body,
right now. I'm like ready. I'm excited.
good. So now think about the body of the wine. This is similar to skim milk versus whole milk. Wines have different weights on the palate. So would you compare that to skim milk or whole milk?
I'm going to go with skim. I'm going to go with
it's nice
skim.
and thin.
Mm-hmm.
And then we can determine bitterness, sweetness, and acidity. So bitterness sensed at the back of your palate, like a bitter IPA beer or dark chocolate. Does your wine taste bitter at all? Do you taste it at the back of your palate?
I did taste at the back of my palate.
A bit. So then there's also sweetness, which is sensed at the front of your palate near the tip of your tongue. Is there some sweetness there too?
There is now. It's the after effect of sweetness.
And then
Which I think is
finally,
good.
we have some acidity sensed on the
Mm.
sides of your tongue, which would be like the mouth-watering sensation after sipping. Do you
There-
sense any of that?
Yeah.
And then my final piece of advice that I have based from this Bright Sellers pamphlet is a pro tip that tannin is more of a sensation than a flavor. Look for an overall dryness or rough texture in your mouth, similar to an oversteeped tea. And that's how you determine how much tannin is in your wine.
I guess this is maybe a medium amount. Now that you're saying all this, and as I'm drinking the wine, I'm starting to taste it. And I feel like anyone listening to this, like, replay this and drink some wine while you do it,
Yeah.
because you could really kind of feel it and understand it as you're talking and as the other person is drinking. Like, be me in this episode. Like, just drink something, not when you're driving, though.
No, not when you're
No,
driving.
No.
But you
that
know
was
what
very interesting.
I love almost as much as I love, no, I definitely love more than wine, is plants. And this other company who we need to reach out to them, Bloomskate, they like to pair plants with wine. And so one of my favorite plants, the Monstera or the Swiss cheese plant, that's that one with the big leaves that has the slits in it.
I'm looking at the pictures, yes.
So if you're a fan of vibrant, flavorful wines like rosé, you'll love the plants of matched intensity. So they recommend the Monstera, which I think rosé is my favorite wine, even though that's kind of not the coolest answer, I suppose. And the Monstera is one of my favorite plants. So my wine matches my plant.
But your personality and your personality.
Bold and bold, yeah.
Right? You're
there
bold.
We go. I like pink
I'd
too.
Say.
Pink and green is my new favorite color combo. Just saying. Yeah.
So is that a hint for me to get you something pink and green for your birthday?
I'm just saying in general, like moving forward, just like if you're wondering in terms of color schemes, I'm into pink and green and gold in there, as like accent. Pink, green, and gold together.
Okay. I'm more with the blue.
You like
so
blue?
You know.
Yeah,
like
okay.
Blue.
Good to know.
Just like to be calm and chill.
Your birthday's coming up soon.
Yes, it is.
Very soon.
End of the month. June 25th. Just throwing it out there. It's my birthday.
Yes. Happy birthday to Maria on June 25th. No one forget. But
easy care, easy drinking is the next plan I see here. Right?
Oh, yeah.
This so more my speed. I'm about easy care and I'm about easy drinking.
Yeah. So what kind of wine would be good for that? Is a Pinot Grigio, and you can pair that with a spider plant. It's a low maintenance plant and will work around you and your busy schedule. So easy care, easy drinking, spider plants, and Pinot Grigio. I don't have that one either, though. I do have this snake plant. The
snake plant.
Next. Yeah, the dark and moody. If you're one to pass the time by sitting in the dark room with a glass of Petit Verdot.
I think it's French, so I want to. It's French, so I want to say it's Petit Verdot. Verdot. I don't know what I just
Probably.
Did there.
Very nice.
Yeah, I tried there. You always got to try. I like the dark and moody as well. I mean, I feel like it depends on your mood. At the end of a long week, you want to be easy care, easy drinking.
True.
Maybe Saturday night, you're like bold and double bold. And then on a rainy day, you're like, I want to be dark and moody. So
yeah. So basically, you should just have all the plants and all the wine.
Yes, exactly.
You should just cover all the bases because you don't know how you're going to be feeling one day to the next.
So, Deb, how is teletherapy going for you?
It's going well. It's winding down, and I have some new projects this summer. Some clients that I'll be seeing to continued on this distance learning platform. So it's going well. I would say it's about 90% boom cards at this point. But I do love boom cards, and I've also been using a lot of YouTube videos as well as books. But how about you? How's it going for you?
It's going well. I'm not towards the end of the school. I mean, I am towards the end of the school year, but we still have more time with therapy as of right now, beginning of June. So what I've been doing, I've really been taking to singing and just incorporating music, because it's just fun and it's exciting. And for my students who are on the autism spectrum, just getting them to engage with me over like a digital platform is like amazing. So I'm just going off their interests, because the minute the kid sees me, he's like, hi. He's learned my name now because he knows I give him what he wants.
Right. Yes.
He's like, yes, she's the one. This is the one that's going to give me Lion King. She's it. So she's Miss Maria, and I better get everything right, you know?
Yeah. There you go.
No,
good motivation.
Well. It's very motivating. So I just, he tells me Lion King, and I'm like, tell me more, and he's like, I want Lion King. So I go on to Lion King. We screen share. We review the lyrics first, like Hakuna Matata, Hakuna Matata. And then we're working on bilingual.
No worries.
Yes, but you want to sing, but Miss Maria is a little annoying. I pause it and I'm like, let me see those lip touch for matata. Let me see that tongue move for the tata. I get very technical in there.
Matata. That's
matata.
Matata is a good word to practice.
Yes,
Hakuna
it is.
Matata.
Yes.
What a wonderful phrase.
And then I'm like, ready, set. And then I'll like throw in a social question sometimes. Like, what's your name though? And then they're like, my name is blank. And I'm like, play that music.
Nice. Good. So, you're like a DJ.
Yes. Yes. And then I've been working on expanding their utterances, of course. So I'm like, what do you see in the video? And the Lion King and the Jungle Book, there's so many animals in those videos. So I just pause it and I'll model like, I see Simba. And it's like, your turn. What do you see? And they say like, I see. Then they'll usually go, I want, because they're stuck in that I want phrase.
Right. Yeah.
Like, oh, we're going to I see now. We're commenting a little more.
Right.
So,
nice.
Yes, that's my tip or trick. Disney musicals. Just sing along and have some jolly old fun.
Perfect. Yeah, that's great.
That's my tip. That's my tip or trick.
Oh.
Disney songs.
I'll piggyback off your tip or trick. Mine is to use some humming in your therapy. I've been using more humming. I have a girl that I'm working with on behaviors, pragmatics, voice, and bilabial. So we just, just keeping those lips together and phonating is a big deal. Also, humming is a great vocal warm-up, and it's a good resonance activity to work on repairing some of the inflammation on those vocal cords from some vocal abuse that might be happening throughout the day. Yeah. So you can hum. We hum, Disney, you can do Cinderella because she hums in that song.
Snow White hums too, I want to say. Like,
yeah.
She goes,
I think she's going like, but I think she's actually going like, ha, 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 ha,
oh, yeah.
like that, like 30s, like,
is that like Yoda?
I'm by the well and I'm wishing. Like,
I'm just gonna play.
I just want this stranger man to love me.
The baritone.
I've never met him.
I know this man that I never met in my dreams.
I love him.
This is an interesting episode of SLP's Wine and Cheese. So your tip is humming. Mine is Disney songs. Okay. Any other last tips we want to say?
No, we're going to do a commercial break, and then you guys are going to hear our conversations with James and Joe, the scientists behind ULO.
Yes, check out the show notes for more information about ULO.
ULO. I said ULO. It's ULO.
ULO. Check it out.
And I think ULO is a verb. You ULO your wine. Like you Google something, you ULO it. You're ULOing while you're ULO.
I was ULOing before this interview. I ULO'd prior to this.
You've already ULO'd.
I ULO'd. It's a regular past tense verb.
Yeah.
Or
you Olayed if it was
Uloid. All right.
All right. Bye.
All right. This episode is brought to you by The Sensory Studio. The Sensory Studio is a pediatric private practice with 2 convenient locations in Staten Island, New York. Traditionally, The Sensory Studio offers school, center, and home-based speech and occupational therapy through private medical insurance. Right now, The Sensory Studio is offering teletherapy sessions for speech and occupational therapy through a simple email link to all New Yorkers. Please email them at info@thesensorystudio.com or call 718-979-5678 to reach their parent coordinator. Also, check out the show notes for more information.
This episode of SLP's Wine and Cheese is brought to you by Bjorn Speech Publications. Bjorn Speech Publications is founded by Jenny Bjorn, SLP. It's a great resource for parents, therapists, and those studying to enter the field of speech pathology. Jenny Bjorn is an expert in the field specializing in childhood apraxia of speech. Bjorn's speech sound cues use fresh, diverse illustrations that speak to children. For more up-to-date child-inspired speech and language products created for therapists by therapists, head over to bjornspeech.com. And now, back to the show. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of SLP's Wine and Cheese. I'm Deb.
And I'm Maria.
And welcome our guests. Today we have James and Joe. James, can you say hi for us?
I'm James Kornacki. I'm the founder of ULO. I guess my background, I'm a scientist. I'm a chemist. I did my doctorate here in Chicago in organic chemistry, and that's where I met Joe.
Wow, that's very impressive.
And Joe, tell us about yourself.
Yeah, I'm Joe Doswich. I'm from Chicago, Illinois. In a former life, I was a patent attorney, so not very fun. But in my current life, I'm ULO's Chief Technology Officer. I'm also a certified sommelier through the Court of Master Sommeliers, and I have 2 units left on my Wine and Spirit Education Trust diploma.
Wow.
Wow.
So you know a little bit about wine.
I like to think so, but the more I learn, the more I realize.
You don't
But
know.
what are the 2 units you have left? We should start there.
The still wines of the world, and then I have to write my paper on natural wine. So,
Wow.
Actually, natural wine would be
what we're going to be.
That would be a good place. Yeah,
natural
totally.
wine. I'm assuming I've just, not nearly onto your caliber. We just have a podcast and I just drink the wine and read the back of the label and pretend like I know what I'm doing. Just confession time right now. So you're saying natural wine. Isn't all wine natural because it's made from grapes? No. Anyone else?
No,
yes,
it's
except for one
natural.
thing. Except for one thing.
Added sulfites will be the only kind of synthetic chemical added. I mean, there's other processing aids and chemicals you can add, but sulfites are not really a natural compound other than what the yeast will produce naturally. So.
See, that I did know. We knew that, right? We've tried some fancy sulfate-free wine, and they did say the label says that it helps prevent hangovers and headaches because it's all the bad stuff in the wine.
Yeah, you can make wine without sulfites. Sulfites are the preservative that does, as Joe mentioned, it forms naturally at really low levels by the yeast during fermentation, but not nearly high enough levels to keep the wine protected against oxidation, which causes it to spoil and it turns into vinegar. So winemakers add sulfites. So the only artificial thing they're supposed to add, and so really the only artificial constituent of wine, but they serve a critical role in winemaking. They're the reason, I have a bottle here. They're the reason you might have more than a bottle at your place. You couldn't transport and store wine if you didn't have sulfites. They also temper the flavor compounds in interesting ways we can talk about later. So they are the perfect preservative for wine. They're indispensable to winemaking. But like I said, you can make wine without sulfites. You can try, and you get natural wines. And there's been a whole movement started to try to make wine totally naturally. It's hard to do. It can be done, but as your experience may have suggested, the wines don't taste quite the same because they lack some of the unique chemistries that the sulfites offer. But we love the movement, even though it totally invalidates what we do. I mean, our job is to take sulfites out of wine. But we also know there really is no substitute for sulfites. So
speaking of, we're all drinking wine right now, and let's talk about what we are drinking and snacking on, and then we're going to get more into the chemistry of wine. I'll go first. So today I'm drinking, now these very fancy wine men are going to probably not like my grocery store wine. However, in a pinch, I went to the grocery store on the corner. It cost me $14.99. When I Googled it, it should have been more along the lines of 10 because, price gouging.
Oh, no.
Yeah, I got swindled here in Brooklyn. But it's called Bands of Rosé. Not only did I get swindled, I am a sucker for marketing. Like, marketing just knows me, and I'm like, what a label that is. I love Bands. I love Rosé. They combined it, and I am a purchaser. It's a dry rosé. It's a 2018 from Washington State. It's fine. I vote drink it. Yeah, I like it. It's not rocking my world like I would hope Band of Rosé would, but I'll take it.
But did you try it before you uloed it and then after?
I didn't, but I didn't ulo my fiance's wine, so I can go do a taste test.
I'm going to do that right now. I'm going to
do it by all means.
Yeah. Just like, wait.
Start
did
by...
you finish that wine?
Try it. See what the difference is, because it might have been sink it before and now it's drink it, or it might have been drink it and uloing it made it a sink. I hope that's not the case, but
I'll do it right now.
See. And and take your time. Joe might be a wine snob. He's totally earned the right to be. He's not, but he's earned the right to be for sure. But the truth is, when I started researching a way to take sulfites out, I was in grad school. It wasn't that long ago, about 6 years ago. And all of the early research I did on Ulo was everything I was drinking in my apartment. And still to this day, we test using the wine that became our standard from that period, and that is Boda Box Chardonnay. So,
I do like that.
I love it. No, it's really consistent. It's really good for testing, and it is good. And the truth is that I haven't found that you really need to spend on wine.
Good.
Certain
I wanted
varietals,
to hear this.
and Joe, Joe, you might agree. Pinot was really popular. Pinot Noir, that is, for the past decade, and it was hard to get, a not sink it bottle for under $10, even under 15. But other than that, I don't know. To me, they're great wines produced at all price points. You just got to know what to get.
The quality of wine that we see in grocery stores, bodegas, what have you, it's gone up in the last decade. I mean, everybody's getting better at making wine. New world countries are figuring out how to do this consistently year in, year out. So something like that, I mean, it really is
more accessible.
There's very few sinkable wines these days.
Oh, we had some on this show. There have been some. And I am a very tolerant person. I am not picky, but there are a few that I think that Maria gave to me on purpose, because I will usually have most anything. And I was like, where on earth did you manage to locate this awful atrocity?
I'm thinking of one when you were like, did they give this out at the nail salons? And you may have been right.
They did.
If you're smelling nail polish remover, it probably has a fault. Volatile acidity, VA.
Yeah.
So I want to try my wine, right? I have a Chardonnay. This is sponsored to us by Eric Kent. So I'm going to try it without Ulo and then with it right now.
Okay. But can we make sure that there was some question about whether you're uloing properly? So can we just make sure?
So
could it be on air or no air?
Controlled experiment. Well, if it's white wine, I always air, but you may choose not to air. But the most important thing is that you put a filter inside.
Yeah, what are you drinking, Joe? He's gonna do us. I'm gonna feel ashamed of my choice.
No.
You're a Band of Rosé. Never feel ashamed.
Okay, yeah. Band of Rosé.
I'm also drinking a Chardonnay from. Mine's from Napa, but
okay.
It's right next door to Russian River Valley, which kind of straddles the Napa Sonoma dividing line
Oh.
south of the mountains.
Sweet.
So Oak Knoll is just north of the city of Napa. This wine is, you know, there's definitely some oak in here, but probably stainless steel as well. Maybe some Lee strain where they stir the yeast, get some mouthfeel. 2016, so that's part of the color, but there's definitely oak in there. So it's kind of a middle of the road, modern California style Chardonnay.
What's the trend, Joe? Are they getting oakier these days, or are they backing off?
Good question.
They will definitely back off in 2020 because a new oak barrel costs, $3,000.
Right.
And in this economy, I don't know who's going to be, unless they already bought their barrels for this year and they're just waiting for them to be shipped.
So maybe 2020 will be the last of the oak
The
barrel
great
wines.
Oak Chardonnays.
Yeah.
There will always be, well, then you can get into the debate of, is it all new oak or is it, is it the second year the barrel was used, third barrel, fourth year?
Right.
So just like with everything else, there's trends, right? Trends
Yeah.
in fashion, trends in speech pathology, right?
Mhm.
Maybe. So what is can you predict any wine trends?
I don't think so. I mean,
No?
I'm still surprised at how much rosé is drunk. Not that it's a bad thing, but it's just something we thought it was a trend, but it might be here to stay.
Do you want to hear my my perspective, my just non-knowledgeable perspective of rosé?
Basic
Yeah.
beep version of it.
I am not basic. What I do I typically was initially a red wine drinker, predominantly Pinot Noir. I felt like it was a nice even-bodied wine. But I do like the rosé because it just is lighter and it feels like it's far more drinkable, but it's not, and I always pick dry rosé, but it's not nearly as dry as like the Sauvignon Blancs and the Chardonnays and Pinot Grigio. So it's kind of like, for me, it's like the most virtuous wine. It has the middle ground between excess and deficiency. It's not like super red and like hitting the back of my throat, and it's not super white where it to me would be like drier.
Front of your tongue. It's like
front of your tongue, yeah.
Red is a back sound and the whites are a front sound.
Exactly. And
alveolar sounds.
Yes.
So now James
SLP humor.
Yes, are like, what is happening right now? This is SLP.
Yeah. So I like the way I like the the sensory perception of rosé wine.
Yeah.
But they can vary so significantly.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's what makes rosé so interesting too. They can be really drinkable, but they can be as equally kind of astringent sometimes as a heavy red.
Right.
So there's a lot of variety.
And if I get a sweet one, I am pissed. I am
really. See, I'm if it's really sweet, perhaps, but sometimes I think those are the best.
Yeah,
you have to be kind of wanting it though. Yeah, if you don't want it and you get it, you say, "Oh,"
and you're like,
"Your mom."
The Kool-Aid man literally just bust through my wall. Like that's how I feel.
Well, there's a time and a place for that. I mean, if you're
I guess.
eating handfuls of Jolly Ranchers, I mean, it'll
True.
beautifully.
No, or like Indian food.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're eating anything spicy, you really do.
Right. I did when I was a waitress. I learned that hack that if anything was so spicy on your tongue, give someone a sugar packet, and that makes it go away.
I've not tried that.
Yeah. So if I convinced someone to get wings because I really didn't care about them, and they were like, "Are they hot?" I'm like, "Nah, they're fine," because I just wanted to get it over with. And then they were like crying that their tongue was on fire. Then I would smooth over the situation with some science. Yeah.
You're like, a server extraordinaire.
I knocked you down to bring you back up.
Luckily, those wings or the sugar doesn't have alcohol with it, because sometimes spice and alcohol can
amplify that situation.
Yeah. Oh, we can talk about the solubility of compounds now if you'd like, and go that direction.
Yeah. So,
but on that note, I have a question for Joe that is really sciencey that I just noticed as I'm drinking my Haute Medoc Bordeaux. And I'm looking down through the glass and there's light coming through my window here. and I see a precipitate has formed. Okay, so little particles. But Joe, I can tell they're not tartrate crystals. If you've ever noticed when you drink an older vintage red, you'll sometimes get solids. Ulo filters them out too, along with sulfites, just because they're physical things that you can pull out. People don't want to drink them. That's why you decant wine. You pour the stuff off. But this is 2015, so I wouldn't, Joe, expect so much condensation of the polyphenolic compounds, the red stuff. But I also don't think they're tartrate crystals. So I think it was a clean glass. Assuming it was clean, any explanation for what that might be?
Yeah, so typically, we said sulfites are the only artificial thing added to wine. You kind of caveat that by mentioning that there are processing aids. So you can use certain processing aids to filter a wine and fine it, which basically finds those particulate matter and precipitates out, and then you can have a clear wine. So in Bordeaux, they mostly use like 2 egg whites per barrel, and that will precipitate out proteins. You could use bentonite, which is diatomaceous clay earth, or you can use isinglass, which is from a sturgeon bladder, but then it's not vegan.
Can we recap that
so
for a second?
They probably just didn't filter or fine their wine. They made.
But I'm interested in
filter.
Which is good, all the more natural. But the filtering agents Joe just mentioned, we have 2 egg whites can be used.
Typically, we use 2 egg whites per barrel.
We have diatomaceous earth, which is the skeletal remains of unicellular, I think, ancient sea creatures, and we have the bladders of fish.
Wait, is this wine or is
accurate?
this a concoction a witch made in her pot?
No, these are processing aids.
These are like this. That's like
filter and fine.
Eye of Newt. Is that next?
Yeah,
no.
But I mean, it just shows like how winemaking is such an old school process, and it still today follows those same traditions. There are certainly chemical agents that would fine wine just fine, but I'm glad they're still using fish bladders. I just don't necessarily want to know about it.
Very few people use isinglass because it's so hard to get reliable isinglass. Most people will use kind of a paper filter, so they'll run the wine through kind of just paper, and that's.
But you think
fine things.
But the particles that I'm seeing in mine, they're purple. So I do think there's some condensate
it's probably
of
a wine
the polyphenols.
Wants a more natural, less filtered, less fined style.
So it probably didn't go through that process. And maybe they use 1 egg white in that too.
Filtering and fining can often strip a wine of a lot of the good things. The tannin compounds, the flavors. You just don't want to strip a wine bare.
Tannin is what makes wine healthy, right? I looked up a fact.
A better question is what the hell is tannin?
Yeah, we got a head tilt on there. So that sounded like, was that fake news, Joe?
Tannins can have health benefit, but it's not. It's probably more of the antioxidant anthocyanins.
Excuse me, Joe. Tannins are comprised of a whole class of molecules, one of which is resveratrol, which has been overhyped in the sciences because it had been shown to extend lifespan, but the lifespan of yeast, and we are not, unfortunately, unicellular fungi. It doesn't work for people to know, but there are plenty of cardioprotective effects in particular that are associated with some of the anthocyanins, which are tannins. Tannins is a general term for any of the polyphenolic compounds found in wine, of which there are hundreds, if not hundreds. I don't want to say hundreds of thousands, but it certainly is possible we'd see all those forms of unknown structure and certainly unknown function in humans. I know when I drink a lot of red wine, I don't know if you have this experience, and I don't have it with whites, I sometimes can't sleep at night. It interrupts my sleep. So I tend to actually drink a lot more white wine, but I have to attribute that to something in the tannins.
Nothing keeps me from sleeping at all. Nothing.
I get headaches now after I had 2 glasses of rosé and I had a headache. So was that the sulfite?
But was it Band of Rosé?
What?
Well, that's mine, and I'm gonna sleep well. I will likely not have a headache. I also don't get headaches really ever. But Yeah, so you're saying that you think it's the tannins that those are keeping you awake, like a stimulant?
Well, something is, yeah. And we just hear tannins, and people, what are tannins? I guess I want listeners to know that we don't really know that tannins are a whole class of molecules that are the natural compounds in wine that are not the ethanol, and they're not the organic acids. They're kind of everything else extracted really from the skins of the grapes, with a much higher concentration, of course, in red wines than in white wines. What they do, why they might be contributing to the health benefits of wine, we don't know, but we know that they must be doing something, because alone the organic acids and the alcohol aren't likely the contributors. Joe,
but are these so what the research studies that you are referring to though are talking about the health benefits of wine, which from my knowledge are strictly red wine. Is that accurate?
There hasn't been a whole lot of research. I wish there were more, but they're not really funding what happens when people drink lots of wine. But over a long period of time. But somebody actually did. They did a longitudinal study that seemed to demonstrate that people who drank wine regularly lived longer.
I think so. I think that would happen. Yeah,
because I have that
think so,
right now.
But I think this is the reason why that what we're doing here, because there's also a lot of evidence that's saying any amount of alcohol is actually bad for you, in any quantity. So I say it's not definitive in either direction. We just don't know. But to the extent, right now in our world we're living in, that we get to talk with people, folks like you in Brooklyn that we didn't know before this, I think that's the kind of thing that's
so good. It's correlation, not causation.
Oh yeah, well, it could be causation. We just don't know the cause.
Right.
So now I'll say it's correlated.
Right,
Maria's got the study. She wants to quote it.
Hush. Medical news today. However, it says the American Heart Association says that the studies do not show a cause and effect relationship. Other factors may play a role. For example, people who drink red wine in moderation may also follow a more healthful lifestyle or a Mediterranean diet. So you can't just say, oh, it's definitely the wine that makes them healthy. It's just so many other variables in a person's health than wine.
Well, I'm going to go with the wine because no one can tell me what to do. It's my show. It's Maria's too, but equal partners, and the wine does it. Cheers.
Amen.
I think wine has better psychological effects maybe than physical.
Well, I've gotten a little.
For the first couple of glasses.
Yeah. I've wondered who that was who did all that stuff last night.
That was you, Deb.
With some wine. It was all of us at one point. Did you ever see that meme that was like, wow, drunk me brushed my teeth, washed my face, changed my clothes, put on my whole skincare routine? She did text my ex-boyfriend, but no one's perfect. Like something like that.
I wish that were drunk me.
It was like drunk me to care
all the time.
Yeah. So I have a question. You guys talked a bunch about like natural wine, and then like also like how wine is a part of people's culture, and it's been a long time that like people have been making wine. So while I would say I was not much of a rebellious teen, but something that we did do. My best friend Margarita is from Italy, and her family would often go there and return with wine. I remember the bottles were this shape, but they were dark. And they were duct taped at the top.
That's so they don't explode in the luggage. Everyone knows that.
Well, whatever it was. I didn't know when I was in high school. I was just like, Maggie, get some of that from the dining room and bring it upstairs.
The duct tape stuff in particular.
Yeah. So we used to just take, because they just had the whole like a corner of the dining room floor was just covered in these bottles, like labelless bottles that I guess like her aunt's feet were just on these grapes. But my question is, so you're talking about natural wines. What do people do in their little Italian
it's a
farms?
Good question.
Oh, those
I will tell you.
I've had some Greek wine like made
because they don't have sulfites. That's why. You have to have
well, we were fine with it.
Well, the Greek wine might have been Retsina, but
the Greek
so
wine.
Sulfites are
red vinegar. That's what it tastes
But
like.
what we're talking about is how do you preserve wine and keep it from oxidizing into vinegar? That's the natural progression of ethanol, especially in the presence of microorganisms. It goes from ethanol to vinegar, and we want to keep the ethanol. That's what makes you drunky drunk, and makes wine wine. If you don't have sulfites, which is how it has been for centuries before the 20th century, you in your Greek village or the Italian village where Margarita's grandparents would drink that entire fermented barrel really all at once.
Right. We had
There
to drink
wasn't
it
any way
right
to keep
away.
it.
So we didn't feel that bad.
Exactly.
Even though we were teenagers, we were like, we already know that this has a time limit.
Exactly. See, you were doing the whole wine community a favor, and really us, by proving our point, which is that you have to have sulfites to make wine last. There's just no way around it. But the reason Margarita's family brought all those back is because wine made with
Right.
little sulfites, or what was just there naturally that has to be consumed right away, tends
Like,
to
what
make
are
a
we
lot of
gonna do
people
with all
feel
this?
better. Exactly.
Yeah.
You probably felt great in high school downing a few of those duct tape bottles until they turned to vinegar.
Well, I mean, it was
So-
either that or Black House. So it was like we were in for the wine. That was a better choice.
So James, so pretty much it's like if you can't beat them, join them. Like we need the sulfites in the wine, but then you created this product, right? The Ulo that removes some of the
sulfite.
extra sulfites, so that
Yeah.
you don't have this hangover, you don't have this headache, you can sleep at night. So is that like
The science is not at all clear on what the role of sulfites is in headaches and hangovers and anything like that. We know they're in there for a reason, to keep wine preserved. The way they do that is by killing the microorganisms in wine that accelerate its oxidation into vinegar and a lot of other things. So by nature, sulfites are designed to be toxic. They're designed to kill living things, and they do it very efficaciously. They just, you would have to ingest a lot more, in fact, than what's in a bottle to kill you. So it's very good at killing tiny little things, but that doesn't mean it's not toxic for humans. Plenty of studies have shown this. In fact, it's one of the reasons sulfites are one of the most heavily regulated food additives, if not the most heavily regulated. You really only see sulfites used in wine and a few other very limited use areas for that reason. So I think in the spirit of keeping wine natural, if we're using fish bladders still in wine, certainly we should be erring to the side of natural with how we make wine and how we enjoy it,
Right.
kind of regardless. So that was sort of the motivation for me to solve this problem of chemistry, and just give people the option to take it out if you want to.
Well, and we take out sulfites selectively. There's other ways to remove sulfites from wine, but you're going to alter a lot of the wine's chemistry and the wine's flavor profile.
right?
So
They
our
have
filters have a selective technology, so it's really binding the sulfites only, and everything else is going to be exactly the same. Other than some of your flavors are going to be more alive. So sulfites can bind to carbonyl compounds and aromas, and that masks their flavor a bit. So when you remove the sulfites, you can get some of those ketones and some of those esters to really kind of come out of the glass and hit your nose and hit your palate a little more forcefully.
That was the hard part that Joe mentions, and that's what enabled Ulo. It's how we created this whole category. It's now grown a little bit. We see some competitors, and it's fantastic, really, because of the reasons Joe just said. If you're taking this artificial thing out, you're not taking out something that is known to be toxic. Only by doing so, you're releasing some of the flavors you otherwise wouldn't experience.
right.
But the hard part really,
So-
it is that selectivity. It's how do you take that one thing out without taking everything else out? Yeah, that was the hard part.
So how was wine preserved in the past? Because how did
It was
in a cask of Amontillado? So why did that dude even want to go down to the cave to
an
see that
Amontillado,
wine that's
yeah.
been there for so
Cask of
long?
Amontillado is going to be a sherry, which is a fortified wine.
Okay.
So that wine is going to be higher in alcohol to the point where you don't need sulfites.
Okay.
just 18%.
Okay.
Yeah. So
Beyond
I feel like,
18%,
ports,
Did Edgar Allan Poe not do his research like that?
you can get wine to age without sulfites, but in a commercial international wine market, it's a risky endeavor.
Okay.
But once you open that barrel that's been held in really standard conditions, it's susceptible to spoilage very quickly.
Yeah.
Again, unless you're above 18% alcohol, in which case you're a fortified wine, then you're good to go.
So like the different wines are named for the grapes that were used to create that wine, right?
Yeah.
And so now, something I wanted to bring up is that my fiance Mike often tells me that I don't understand him because he is a Pinot grape, which is a very he's a very temperamental, thin-skinned grape that needs to be nurtured. And it also has been brought to my attention this was in a popular movie. Can you expand upon?
Hold on, like a Pinot Grigio or like a Pinot Noir?
A Pinot Noir grape.
Okay.
It's a hard grape to grow. It's thin-skinned, temperamental. It's not a survivor like the Cabernet that can grow anywhere and thrive, even when neglected. Pinot needs constant care and attention, you know? In fact, it can only grow in those really specific little tucked away corners of the world, and only the most patient and nurturing of growers can do it, really. Only somebody who takes the time to understand the Pinot's potential can then coax it into its finest
He sounds like a keeper.
This is from the movie.
Sounds like someone pontificating Sideways.
This is from Sideways. Yeah, I read the quote. But yeah, he like heard that and he's like, holy shit, I'm a Pinot grape. Like that was his thing.
Just a misconception a little bit. You know, in America, we're used to enjoying wine based on the varietal, based on the grape. But that's really, Joe, is it just an American thing?
No, it was kind of anywhere that didn't have 500 years of, you know, the Dukes of Burgundy discovering what grew best on their terroir.
I have no idea what you just said.
I'm trying to break it down for you.
Okay.
So we have the varietals. You know, you go to the grocery store and you see your Pinot Grigio, your Pinot Noir, your Sauv Blanc and Cabernet and so on and so forth. But in Europe, the wine is based on the region, and those regions are comprised of the grapes that really perform best in those climates.
Pinot is one of those grapes where
is it sensitive, or did they make it up for the movie?
It's difficult to grow to get a big harvest. You know, Chardonnay you can kind of grow anywhere, cold climate, warm climate. You can put it on oak, you can do stainless steel, you can stir the lees. Cabernet kind of the same way. It's very giving to the winemaker and the grape grower. Pinot, you have to watch, but that doesn't necessarily make it better or worse. There's a lot of bad Pinot out there that either capitalize on Sideways or just wanting to be trendy. And to be very fair to Sideways, Merlot, if you go to the Wine Spectator's Instagram page, they're posting old covers, and there's one that's kind of, oh no, he bought another Merlot from like 1997, which is, I don't know,
bad year
years before Sideways. But basically, Merlot was planted indiscriminately in California. So we had a lot of terrible Merlot planted all over.
Okay. Which
is why he's so against Merlot, because it was the industrial, economic-driven wine that we produced.
Before we wrap up this episode, we usually like to end our episodes with a quote. We always forget to tell the guest, but if there's anything that you tell yourself on a daily basis, a quote, a mantra, just anything that has helped you throughout your life that you want to put out into the world, can you give that to us now?
Okay, James.
Yeah, it's Stephen Hawking, who I love and respect for so many reasons. My favorite quote of all time, if life weren't funny, it would be tragic.